On Asia Tonight, the spotlight is on Hong Kong's District Council election. The largest voter turnout in the city's history, and there are still hours to go before the polls close.
Well, the Asia First team is here in Hong Kong to give you an in-depth look at the pivotal polls.
The election is widely seen as a test of support for the city's leader after nearly 6 months of anti-government protests.
I'm Wei Du, outside a polling station in Kowloon, where voters continue to turn out in record numbers.
You're watching Asia Tonight. Hello, everyone. I'm Jill Newbronner. Now, a historic day in Hong Kong, which saw the biggest ever voter turnout for any election in the territory. As of 7 p.m. local time, more than 60% of the registered 4.1 million voters had cast their ballots for the District Council election. Our polls are set to close in a few hours. Long queues were seen outside polling stations today. Let's take a look at live pictures. And now we have seen the first polls since the city was rocked by anti-government protests in June. It is widely seen as a test of public support for the city's leader, CARRIE Lam. For more on this, we're going to our Asia First team. Joining us live from Hong Kong, that is CNA's Adam Bhatia and CNA's 938's Yasmin Yonkers. Adam, Yasmin.
Thank you, Jill. Good evening from a nippy night here in Hong Kong. Last-minute voters have until 10:30 p.m. local time to get their ballots in. And as I understand, as long as they get in the queue by 10:30 p.m., they have the right to vote. But as you said, the turnout numbers have well eclipsed the last district council election. That was back in 2015. Many residents headed to the polls early today. And what that resulted in was hours-long queues at various districts. Some people even had to wait, Adam, over 1.5 hours in order to vote.
Well, you'd understand why. In fact, because there was about more than half of the 4.1 million registered voters had to cast their ballots by late afternoon. Now, that exceeded the total turnout in 2015, which was around about 1.5 million. In the meantime, Chief Executive CARRIE Lam was among the early voters today. Speaking to reporters, she praised the smooth operations of polling centres, despite the challenges in organising this year's election. Now, she also promised to listen more intensively to the views of local councils.
I hereby pledge that the Hong Kong SAR government will continue to fully support the work of the district councils, provide more resources, and listen more attentively to the views and opinions expressed by the district council members on behalf of the local population.
That's the Hong Kong Chief Executive CARRIE Lam speaking right after she cast her vote this morning. Meanwhile, members of the protest movement have also urged residents to come out and vote. One of them, Jimmy Sham, a protest organizer for the Civil Human Rights Front, who was attacked by men with hammers on the campaign trail last month. Still, he hopes residents will vote for the future of Hong Kong.
我相信今日就係俾所有曾經出過嚟或者想出嚟而出唔到嘅嚟嘅人一齊可以表態，為香港嘅未來去投票。唔能夠話淨係做政治嘅事而唔理民生嘅工作，但係我哋更加唔能夠淨係理民生嘅工作而放輕政治唔去表態。
I think that the most important thing the government has to do is to address the concerns and the opinions of the people that are raised by the majority of the public now, which is something that the government has not been doing since June. And that's why there is that much of a protest in Hong Kong that is happening in the moment.
Some people might want, the vote show that, peace is more important. Some really want maybe democracy, the police issues, is more important. But whatever, I think if they vote, they believe into what they are representing, I think it's more important, because at least we are doing all our Hong Kong civilians, should be doing, right? This is our duty to vote as well.
我哋而家上咗年紀啦，呢個世界係為下一代而做嘢。係啊，
係最緊要大家
每一個下一代，
即係大家睇清楚、諗清楚下一代係點樣樣，呢個好緊要嘅。其實
我哋而家 enjoy 到嘅嘢，下一代可能未必有
我哋
即係唔係必然咯，好多嘢。
係啦，我哋唔企出嚟幫佢哋咧，就害咗下一代。
Now, the district council election is normally really a low-profile one, but this time around it's seen as a test of support for the city's government after months of unrest, in fact, since June. Now, here's what is at stake. There are 452 seats in the district council being contested by over 1,000 candidates. Now, the councils, they're mostly, well, advisory bodies, really. They try to sort of lobby on behalf of their constituents on community issues such as bus routes and garbage collection, and if there's sort of any complaints with noise and the neighbours, Yasmin.
But they do get a small representation in Hong Kong's bigger political picture, and here's how. They can influence who will be the next chief executive of Hong Kong, but only 117 district councillors will be given seats on the exclusive 1,200-member committee which elects really the city's leader. More importantly, a strong showing today by the pro-democracy candidates could indicate that the public continues to stand behind the protests, even if they've become increasingly violent and made the lives of Hong Kongers quite difficult.
That's right.
Well, our correspondent Wei Du is monitoring the situation on the ground today. She joins us from To Kwan Wan North in Kowloon. Wei, good evening to you. How's the turnout been in the area where you are? And are you still seeing those long queues of voters that we've been talking about?
No, Yasmin, no lines whatsoever now. So occasionally we still see some late voters turning up to vote, but generally voting across Hong Kong slowed significantly in the afternoon. This is perhaps because the majority of the voters simply have chosen to turn up early today. That is, though, overall, you look at the numbers, by 6:30 p.m., 60% of registered voters have voted. That's close to 2.5 million people. These are stunning numbers. They're not just higher than the previous district council elections. They're also higher than a much more important legislative council elections a few years ago. The reason I'm here is because this is perhaps the most important race in this election. This seat, To Kwan Wan North, for the past 20 years has been held by Starry Lee. She's the chairperson of Hong Kong's biggest pro-Beijing party. She won the seat by 80% of the vote the last time, but today she's running into fierce competition from Leung Ko-hyung, or better known locally as Long Hair, a radical pro-democracy candidate. And so much so, even late into the evening, Starry Lee was still out canvassing for vote, urging her supporters not to be complacent. Take a listen.
We know that this time we have a lot of people turn out to vote, and we hope that, and we would like to urge all supporters to come out to vote for us because it is such an important election. If we want to restore peace and order, if we want to have Hong Kong restart again, please come to vote for us. Please come to vote.
Now, as she was giving her a little... As she was giving her little pep talk, she actually encountered her opponents and his supporters, and the pro-democracy supporters literally shouted her down. So that really intense encounter shows you what's really at stake here. Usually a high turnout would benefit the pro-democracy camp, but let's just anchor the expectations. The district council elections, because it's all single-seater, first-past-the-post system, most of the voters are still voting on community issues, livelihood issues, and the pro-Beijing parties simply have a much better grassroots organization. So best case scenario, even the Pan-Democrats leadership is now saying that they hope to gain control of half of the 18 district councils. So what you won't see is a landslide victory for the pro-democracy camp. Guys.
Wei, there's of course been no major incidents so far today, in contrast to the situation in the past 5 to 6 months here in Hong Kong. I mean, to what extent could you attribute that to the tighter security at the polling stations, or is it really simply that, you know, the anti-government demonstrators wanted to go smoothly without any hiccups as well, because they want to get engaged in the democratic process?
Yeah, that's right, Adam. Actually, you can see some police officers. They were just behind me. And local media reports have said all of Hong Kong's 31,000 police officers have reported to work today. So you simply cannot discount that fact. That said, though, both sides are heavily invested in this election. For the pro-democracy camp, including the protesters, they are hoping to use this election as a referendum on the government. And they are as a referendum on how the government sort of triggered this protest movement, how it subsequently handled this 6 months of unrest. So on the protesters forum, actually, people are urging each other to come out and vote. They're also urging each other not to do anything silly, not to surround any polling stations and counting stations, and not to interrupt or to interfere with people on their way to vote. For the pro-government side, a lot of people are also claiming to be the silent majority, and they hope to make themselves heard, where their message is that this violence is too much, and they simply want life to get back to normal. That is perhaps the more important factor here, is the fact that both sides have shown utmost respect for the democratic process so far. This is, though, only step one. Step two is, of course, for when the results come out, for both sides to respect these results graciously, winning or losing, guys.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's a relief, at least, that this whole process has gone off without any hiccups. And, of course, more people are getting engaged in the democratic process here.
And I have to say, Hong Kong is experiencing one of its most peaceful Sundays in a very long time.